Hello everyone, welcome to the Tim Booker channel. I wish you all a pleasant listening experience. Today, the book I'll be interpreting for you is On Apology, written by Allen Lazare. Apologizing may seem like a simple thing, everyone knows how to say those 3 words, I am sorry. However, in our daily lives, we often encounter awkward situations when apologizing. For instance, there are times when we know we're wrong, but the apology doesn't come easily. Sometimes, when we finally muster the courage to apologize, the other person refuses to accept it and accuses us of insincerity. Even worse, in some cases, apologizing may lead to even more resentment. So, you see, while apologizing may sound easy, achieving the desired results can be quite complex. This book is a guide on how to apologize correctly. Author Allen Lazare tells us that when done correctly, apologizing can not only resolve conflicts but also bring many additional benefits to ourselves. This book discusses the significance and methods of apologizing from psychological, sociological, and other perspectives. It provides numerous real historical and contemporary cases of apologies to help us deeply understand and harness the power of apologizing. Today, the study of apologies has evolved into a discipline known as apology science, and prestigious institutions like the Wharton School and Harvard University are actively researching it. This book is considered an authoritative work in the field of apology science. It has even received the Psychology Professional and Academic Publishing Honors Award from the American Publishers Association. The author of this book, Allen Lazare, is the former President Emeritus and Honorary Dean of the University of Massachusetts Medical School. He is also an internationally renowned expert in the field of apology science. Many mainstream international media outlets, such as Psychology Today, The Washington Post, The Wall Street Journal, have published his articles. This book is Allen Lazare's magnum opus, drawing on over a decade of research into more than 1,000 instances of apologies. Now that we've covered the basics of this book and information about the author, let's delve into the content. I will explain 3 key sections. 1. Why do we need to apologize? 2. How to apologize correctly. 3. Important considerations when apologizing. Alright, let's take a look at the content of the first section. Why do we need to apologize? What are the benefits and purposes of apologizing? Firstly, apologizing is the most effective means to resolve conflicts. The book begins with the author sharing a personal family anecdote. During a dinner one evening, the author's wife mistakenly accused their daughter of taking a dessert she had prepared during the day. Despite the daughter's firm denial, the wife publicly scolded her. The next morning, the wife realized that she had actually left the dessert in the cupboard. It was then the daughter's turn to blame her mother. It wasn't until the mother repeatedly apologized that the daughter humorously remarked, "Mother, I enjoyed watching you apologize." In the end, mother and daughter reconciled as if nothing had happened. Such minor conflicts are common in our daily lives, occurring not only between family members but also among colleagues, friends, and even strangers. Apologizing is often the most effective way to mend these situations. According to the author's research, the power of apology in resolving conflicts and repairing relationships lies in its ability to fulfill various psychological needs of the victim. It can heal the wounds caused by conflicts, helping the victim regain their self-esteem and dignity. Whether it's a minor insult or a severe attack, most offensive behaviors make victims feel humiliated and their dignity compromised, just like the author's daughter being accused of theft in front of the family, leading to loss of face and personal devaluation. Apologizing, in this context, signifies a reversal of roles. The once dominant mother is willing to lower her status to accept negative judgments, seeking her daughter's understanding. The previously disadvantaged daughter now has the right to choose whether to forgive her mother and regain her self-esteem. The relationship between mother and daughter is restored to an equal footing. Apologizing also helps satisfy the victim's desire to confirm that they were not at fault. Sometimes, victims may doubt whether they should take responsibility for the harm they endured. For example, some girls who experience harassment from strangers while shopping may wonder if they look too vulnerable or stand out too much, attracting the attention of wrongdoers. Some people, after being hurt, constantly question whether they did something wrong or if they are too sensitive. If the wrongdoer acknowledges their mistake, it clarifies that the victim is not to blame. Their inner self-doubt dissipates. Furthermore, apologizing helps victims feel safe in their interpersonal relationships. After an offense, victims often can't be sure if similar incidents will occur again. To avoid further harm, they remain vigilant and avoid those who offend them. However, if the wrongdoer genuinely apologizes and explains, the victim has the opportunity to understand why the act occurred, whether it was intentional or unintentional, and what the wrongdoer's perspective is. This helps rebuild trust, providing a sense of security in the relationship. In addition to these three needs, apologizing can also satisfy other requirements, such as the victim's desire for the wrongdoer to be punished, the need to express their pain, or the need for compensation. These are relatively straightforward and do not require further elaboration. Without an apology, these psychological needs of the victim remain unmet, and conflicts may escalate, as we often see in news stories about business disputes that start from minor disagreements. Another role of apologizing is to alleviate the negative feelings within the wrongdoer. The book mentions a 71-year-old man who wrote a letter to apologize to a friend for a mistake he made 60 years ago. At that time, his friend was mocked by a group of boys, and the man, instead of supporting his friend, joined the group of boys. Although this incident did not affect their friendship, it had haunted the man for decades, causing him persistent guilt. After sending the apology letter, he received forgiveness from his friend and finally freed himself from the negative memories. The author explains that when we offend others, we typically experience two natural psychological reactions, guilt and shame. On one hand, we feel indebted to the person we've hurt and punish ourselves emotionally. This is the source of guilt. On the other hand, when we think about our past actions, we feel like we've let ourselves down and aren't the upright and noble person we aspire to be. This is the source of shame. These two negative feelings constituted the man's burden. Through the process of apologizing, wrongdoers have the opportunity to acknowledge their mistakes, make amends, and emerge from guilt. Apologizing also signifies a willingness to take responsibility for one's actions, allowing wrongdoers to regain a sense of righteousness and nobility while eliminating shame. The third role of apologizing is to establish a positive personal image for the apologizer. Many people believe that apologizing is embarrassing and damages their reputation, especially when done in public. However, this is not the case. For instance, the renowned writer Lu Xun, while teaching, had a student who exhibited peculiar behavior and incoherent speech. Lu Xun mistakenly thought the student was sent by a rival literary group to disrupt his class and wrote an article criticizing the student's behavior. After the article was published, other students explained to Lu Xun that the student's strange behavior was due to recent family troubles that had affected his mental state. He wasn't a troublemaker but rather someone in need of support. Lu Xun, upon realizing his mistake, promptly published another article publicly apologizing to the student and condemning his own quick temper and suspicion. Instead of holding his mistake against him, people admired Lu Xun even more for his willingness to admit his error and engage in self-criticism. Therefore, apologizing actually reflects positively on a person's character and integrity. In daily life, individuals who are willing to apologize to family and friends come across as more graceful, while in the workplace, leaders who dare to apologize demonstrate responsibility in leadership, which can bring people together. That covers the content of the first section. Next, let's shift our perspective from individuals to groups. Apologizing can also help organizations such as businesses and groups maintain their reputation and gain societal support. For instance, in the realm of business, companies can turn crises into opportunities through apologies. A notable example is the fast food chain KFC, which faced a chicken shortage crisis in hundreds of its UK stores due to logistical issues. It had to temporarily close many of its outlets, leading to widespread customer dissatisfaction. However, KFC managed to regain public approval by issuing a humorous and self-deprecating apology in a local newspaper. The apology featured a picture of an empty KFC chicken bucket with the brand's initials, KFC, humorously altered to FCK, followed by an apology letter titled, "We're sorry." The letter humorously acknowledged the situation by stating, "A chicken restaurant without any chicken is not ideal. Huge apologies to our customers, especially those who traveled out of their way to find we were closed." This self-deprecating and witty apology received widespread acclaim from the British public, with social media users praising KFC. Through this apology, KFC not only successfully placated negative emotions among customers but also achieved positive brand marketing effects. In recent years, corporate and organizational apologies have become increasingly common. According to statistics, Japanese newspapers publish over 40 apology advertisements each month. Business leaders have realized that, in times of crisis, the only way to prevent further losses is through apologies. When used appropriately, not only can the other party forgive you, but they may also become supportive. Expanding the scope to racial and national contexts, it becomes evident that apologies play a significant role in international relations. After World War II, there was a gradual increase in apologies among nations, which became a vital component of national policies and diplomacy. For example, in 1947, U.S. President Harry Truman, during his visit to Mexico, bowed in front of a monument to soldiers who died in the Mexican-American War, a gesture seen as healing a perpetual national wound. Germany, on the other hand, had two of its chancellors personally express repentance at memorials for Jewish victims of Nazi persecution. In an era of peace, disputes still exist due to territorial, wealth, and racial differences, but most countries now prefer to use the more civilized approach of apologies to ease tensions and maintain political stability. To summarize, the first section discussed why we should apologize and outlined the 5 benefits and purposes of apologizing. 1. Apologizing is the most effective means of conflict resolution because it addresses various psychological needs of the victim and promotes healing. 2. Apologizing can alleviate the guilty feelings and shame within the wrongdoer. 3. Apologizing can enhance the personal image of the apologizer. 4. Apologizing helps organizations, such as businesses, gain societal support. 5. Apologizing benefits larger groups like nations and ethnicities by promoting stability and reconciliation. So, whether as individuals or members of a group, we can all benefit from the act of apologizing. Alright, now that we've covered why we should apologize, let's move on to the second part of the content, how to apologize correctly. According to the author's research, an effective apology must include 4 elements: acknowledgement of wrongdoing, self-blame, explanation, and compensation. Let's start with the first and most crucial element, acknowledgement of wrongdoing. This forms the foundation of an apology and goes beyond a simple, "I'm sorry." Acknowledging wrongdoing involves several key steps. 1. Identifying the parties involved. Begin by clearly defining who should apologize to whom. In some conflicts, the parties involved may not be immediately obvious. For example, when a company makes a mistake, it may not be clear who should issue the apology. In minor cases, the responsible individual or department may suffice, but for significant errors that touch upon a brand's core values, it may require top-level management to demonstrate the company's commitment. For instance, when Apple was accused in 2013 of having unequal after-sales service policies in China, which affected consumers' core interests, even though the primary responsibility may have rested with the after-sales department, CEO Tim Cook personally issued the apology and announced compensation measures to regain the respect of Chinese consumers. 2. Clearly stating the offense. It's essential to articulate precisely what the wrongdoing was. A simple, generic, "I'm sorry, I was wrong," often falls short. When apologizing for causing offense in a relationship, for instance, it's insufficient to just say, "I'm sorry, I was wrong." The other party will often ask, "What did you do wrong?" If you cannot specify or clarify your actions, it's unlikely to lead to forgiveness. Vague statements like, "I apologize for everything I did," are generally ineffective. Instead, clearly describe the specific actions that were wrong and where the mistake occurred. 3. Understanding and acknowledging the harm caused. This step involves recognizing and admitting the harm inflicted on the victim. For instance, if you accidentally broke a vase, you should understand how important that vase was to its owner and its value. Use empathy to grasp the other person's perspective. Failure to comprehend the extent of the harm or downplaying it can backfire. The book cites an example of a college newspaper that published a letter with racist and sexist viewpoints, causing harm to women and minority groups. The apology issued later failed because it did not acknowledge that the letter contained racially biased content. The apology merely stated, "We apologize to anyone who may have been offended," implying that some readers may have overreacted. This kind of apology made students even angrier, as it seemed insincere. 4. Recognizing violation of social or moral contracts. Finally, acknowledging that the behavior violated recognized social or moral norms is crucial. This implies that both the apologizer and the victim share the same value system and that the same behavior will not recur. It's a commitment to uphold shared principles. For example, the U.S. Department of the Interior's Bureau of Indian Affairs, after causing significant harm to Native American communities, publicly acknowledged its historical wrongdoings and stated that its actions had violated the mutual commitment to maintaining peace. This form of apology conveys that the apologizing party shares the victim's belief in peace and cooperation but had acted against these shared principles in the past. Additionally, the author emphasizes the importance of tone and wording during the apology process. Phrases like, "since it happened," and conditional language such as, "if anyone was hurt," are inappropriate and can undermine a well-prepared apology. Sure, here is the translation of the provided content into English. After discussing the first element of apologizing, which is acknowledgement of wrongdoing, let's move on to the second element, self-blame. Self-blame refers to the feeling of regret and guilt that arises from making a mistake, accompanied by genuine self-reproach from within. It is a form of self-punishment by the person at fault. Self-blame also signifies the willingness of the wrongdoer to take responsibility and commit to self-restraint and improvement in the future. Therefore, displaying sincere self-blame is often a crucial indicator for people when deciding whether to forgive the one who made the mistake. Researchers at the University of Illinois conducted a study in which all participants were told about an incident where a bicyclist accidentally collided with a pedestrian. In this scenario, researchers designed two types of apologies for the bicyclist. The first apology was, "I'm very sorry you got hurt. I hope you get well soon." The second apology was, "I'm truly sorry you got hurt. This accident was entirely my fault. I was riding too fast and not paying enough attention to the road." The study results showed that 73% of people believed that the second apology, which expressed deep regret and self-blame, was more likely to be accepted by the injured party compared to the first one. The third essential element of an apology is offering an explanation. Let's imagine a workplace scenario where you failed to complete a task assigned by your boss. In such a situation, merely acknowledging the mistake and taking self-blame might not be enough to provide a satisfactory response to your superior. Usually, it's necessary to report to your supervisor and explain the specific reasons that led to the current outcome. Was it due to human error or external factors? How do you plan to prevent similar errors in the future? Providing a detailed explanation helps the other party understand whether your actions were accidental or deliberate and what measures you plan to take to avoid similar mistakes. Including honest details in your explanation aids in gaining the other party's forgiveness, while dishonest or incomplete explanations may come across as defensive or weaken the power of the apology. For example, the book mentions a U.S. senator who insulted Arabs during a speech. In his subsequent apology, he explained that he spoke too quickly without thinking. This explanation appeared insincere and did not alleviate the offense caused. In fact, it exacerbated the situation. The final element of an effective apology is compensation. In some apologies, compensation is a crucial part. The author shares a personal experience in the book. Lazare had a friend who was a photographer. This friend accidentally dropped photography equipment onto an expensive antique lampshade while shooting in Lazare's office, breaking the lampshade and its decorations. The friend repeatedly apologized, but when Lazare inquired about the lampshade, the friend showed no concern and had no intention of making amends. This left Lazare feeling very angry. Just like in Lazare's situation, when apologizing, if you have the ability to compensate for the harm caused but choose not to, the apology becomes ineffective. Is compensation always material in nature? Not necessarily. For some verbal offenses, compensation can be symbolic, such as inviting the offended party for a cup of coffee or a meal, among other gestures. If you're unsure about an appropriate compensation method, you can directly ask the other party, "Is there something I can do to make amends?" Alright, what I've just covered is the second part of the book, How to Apologize Correctly. We've learned that there are 4 essential elements to an effective apology. 1. Acknowledgement of wrongdoing, which forms the foundation of an apology. 2. Self-blame, expressing regret for the wrongful behavior and a willingness to take responsibility. 3. Explanation, clarifying the reasons behind the mistake. 4. Compensation, which may be material or symbolic. Now, let's discuss the last part of the content, which focuses on important considerations when apologizing. First, it's crucial to choose the right timing for an apology. Many people believe that apologizing as quickly as possible is the best approach. However, this is not always the case. The timing of an apology can vary depending on the situation. Sometimes, it's better to wait for a certain cooling-off period before apologizing. For instance, during a heated meeting where everyone is passionately discussing an issue, you inadvertently make hurtful remarks to a colleague, causing them to storm out in anger. At that moment, the other person is extremely upset, and if you immediately go and apologize, it might only add fuel to the fire. In cases of significant personal misconduct, such as publicly humiliating someone, betraying a friend, or deceiving others, it's often more appropriate to give the injured party some time to calm down before offering an apology. The duration of this cooling-off period can vary depending on the specific circumstances. It could be a few hours, days, weeks, or even longer. During this time, the injured party has a chance to express their emotions, gain clarity about the situation, and gradually regain composure. It also gives the person who made the mistake an opportunity to carefully consider how to apologize, think about potential compensation measures, and, in situations where both parties share some responsibility, allows everyone to think rationally about possible solutions. In contrast, when a mistake is not personal or not particularly severe, immediate apologies are necessary. For example, if you accidentally bump into someone at a party and spill wine on them, this is an unexpected incident that can happen to anyone and is not directed at the person personally. In such cases, an immediate apology is appropriate, otherwise, others may perceive you as either impolite or intentional in your actions. There's also a situation where preemptive apologies are made when there's a sense that something unpleasant might happen in the future. For example, during a meeting, if someone needs to leave early before the meeting concludes, it's polite to apologize in advance to the group. Similarly, if a husband knows he has an evening commitment that will make him late coming home, he might send an apology to his wife in the morning, saying something like, "I'm sorry, dear, but I won't be able to have dinner with you tonight." Therefore, the timing of an apology should be chosen based on the specific circumstances. Missing the optimal timing can significantly reduce the effectiveness of an apology. The second important consideration when apologizing is that an apology does not mean the dispute is over. The author suggests that an apology is actually the beginning of a negotiation process between the parties involved. When one party unilaterally makes an apology, it does not signify that the matter is resolved. On the contrary, the apology is just the starting point. In many complex conflicts, both during and after the apology, a series of negotiations take place. These negotiations may involve determining each party's level of responsibility, providing the victim an opportunity to express their pain, deciding whether there should be a form of punishment for the wrongdoer, and agreeing on compensation terms, among other issues. Anything related to the conflict event can be subject to negotiation. In many business and international negotiations, signs of negotiated apologies are often visible. The book mentions a case between the United States and North Korea in 1994. A U.S. helicopter crashed in North Korean territory, and the pilot was captured by North Korea. The North Korean government claimed that the helicopter was on a spy mission and demanded that the pilot and the U.S. government publicly admit to the espionage operation. However, the U.S. government was unwilling to fully comply with North Korea's demands but also didn't want to escalate the situation. Eventually, both parties reached a compromise where the pilot wrote a letter of apology, acknowledging that the operation violated North Korean sovereignty and international law but not admitting to espionage. After the apology letter was publicly released, the pilot was released from captivity. This case illustrates that the content and manner of the apology were the result of negotiations between the two parties. Both the United States and North Korea made concessions, leading to a resolution that diffused tensions. In conclusion, the timing of an apology should be chosen based on the specific circumstances, and an apology does not mark the end of a dispute but rather the beginning of a negotiation process between the involved parties. That's about it for the content of this book. I believe you now have a fresh perspective on apologies. In fact, how we apologize reflects how we face mistakes and failures. No one is perfect, and facing our past mistakes with courage and the willingness to apologize is an essential part of personal growth. As the author concludes in this book, in the past, apologies were often seen as a sign of weakness, but today, people view them as a sign of strength. Alright, the power of apology has been explored up to this point. Congratulations on finishing another book. Thank you all for listening to the Tim Booker channel. Please subscribe to the Tim Booker channel, like, and share this valuable knowledge with your friends. Let's combine wisdom with action to achieve our financial goals and create a better future. Thank you, everyone, and goodbye.